Hi, and in this lesson we'll be looking at chromatic mediants in film scoring, what they are and how we use them in relation to film scoring. Now, use of chromatic mediants in film scoring go right back to since films had their own designated scores composed by them, right back to being used by composers such as Eric Korngold and Bernstein within film scores. And they're still used to this day within film scoring. All your favourite film composers such as Hans Zimmer, Howard Shore, Danny Elfman, and even John Williams use chromatic mediants in order to create a sense of feel or emotion within their music over a certain film scene. In fact, Fred Karlin and Rayburn Wright wrote in their book On the Track, A Guide to Contemporary Film Scoring, the use of chromatic mediants in film music is a hallmark of modern film scoring, allowing composers to create complex harmonic structures that heighten the emotional impact of a scene. Now, chromatic mediants have been with us for centuries. They go right back to the Baroque period where Handel used them within his Messiah, Bach has used them, but they came much more prevalent within the Romantic period, particularly in the music of composers such as Franz Liszt and the composer from the common practice period that probably has the biggest influence on film scoring, that being Richard Wagner. Now, we use them in film scoring because they create a certain feel or certain emotion that our Western ears have learnt to recognise through years and years and years of Western composers using these chord progressions in order to create the feeling, and our ears have become conditioned to say, oh, that sounds sad, that sounds happy. In fact, Claude Scherrer wrote, one of the reasons why Western audiences may recognize certain emotions in music is because they are culturally conditioned to do so. Western music has a long tradition of using certain musical features to express specific emotions, and these features have become deeply ingrained within Western musical culture. And that is relevant to us as film scorers because we want our audiences watching the film and hearing our music to think our music is making them feel a certain way. So, what are chromatic mediants? Simply put, they're a relationship between two chords that are a third apart and are chromatic to each other. We're going to use three basic rules for this lesson, and those rules are: 1, the chords must be a third apart; 2, the chords must be chromatic to each other; and the third rule, which is more of a guideline, but it's a very useful guideline to help keep your music sounding stable, which I'll explain at the end of the lesson, is that the chords must be of the same chord type, i.e. major to major or minor to minor. Now, some of you are still thinking, oh, chromatic mediants, it sounds like some advanced music theory that's really difficult, and it's not. I can explain chromatic mediants probably in minutes by breaking down the two words. The first word being chromatic. Well, what does that mean? Well, if I take a scale, let's take C major, all the white notes, C to C, our C major scale. All the white notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, those notes are diatonic. They're within the scale. All the black notes, those would be chromatic because they are not within the C major scale. So when we're playing a chord progression, if I was to play a C major and then go to an E minor, we know that the C major chord contains the notes that are diatonic within the key of C major, and we know that the E minor is also using notes that are within the key of C major, so that is a diatonic chord progression. If I was to then go from C major to E major, we suddenly have this sneaky G sharp in there, just sneaking its way in there, and that means that that note is not within the key signature of C major, therefore that note is chromatic, which means that chord progression because the second chord is using a note that's not within the key, is chromatic chord progression. So that's simply what it means. Diatonic means all the notes you're using are within the key signature. Chromatic means you're using notes that are not within the key signature. It's that simple. Now, mediant. Well, you know that your notes have their letter names, the C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, but they also have other names. Our C, or our root, will be our tonic. Our second note of the scale will be our supertonic. The third note of our scale, that's our mediant. So a mediant is a third above. Now let's carry on, and because it's still relevant, we then, after our mediant, we then have our subdominant, we have our dominant, we then have our submediant. The reason it's called a submediant, sub meaning below, and mediant meaning a third away from the tonic, it is a third below our tonic, whereas our mediant is a third above the tonic. After that, we then have our subtonic or leading tone back to our tonic. So if we want to find our mediants, we either go up a third or we go down a third. Now we could go up a major third, which is really simple to find. It's simply a major third is 4 semitones above. So if our tonic is C, we go up 1, 2, 3, 4 notes. That's our major third. Our mediant there is E. Or we could go up a minor third, which is 3 semitones. So 1, 2, 3, and we have E flat, which is still our mediant. So a mediant can be a major third above or a minor third above. Our submediant, the same, could be a major third below, so 4 semitones below. Our tonics there, so 1, 2, 3, 4, to A flat, which is our submediant, a major third below our tonic of C. Or we could go down a minor third, 3 semitones, to find another submediant below our tonic. So tonic being C, we go down 3 semitones to A. And that is also a submediant of our tonic of C. There is simply a chromatic mediant is a chord that is a third above or a third below our tonic, and it is chromatic to our key signature, i.e. using notes that are not within the key signature. So there you have it. That's what chromatic mediant means. So that's our first two of our rules. A third away and is chromatic. And our third rule, which is a guideline, and we will be sticking to with these examples, and I'll explain why it's a useful guideline at the end. Now, some of these progressions we're looking at today have been given names. Richard Cohen, musicologist, has named two of them. The first one he named is taking two major chords that are a major third apart. So, for example, C major to E major. And he named that the Taraskin. And he named it after another musicologist, Richard Taraskin, who wrote about it within Sergei Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf. Now, the other one he named is if we take two minor chords that are a major third apart. So, for example, that would be C minor to E minor. Now, he named that the Tarnhelm. The reason he named it the Tarnhelm because that is the progression used in the Tarnhelm motif from Wagner's Ring Cycle. But the thing about these names is, unless you study musicology and know who Richard Taraskin is, or you know Wagner's work, these names are kind of useless to us as film composers. Because to us as film composers, we want to think about the feeling or the emotion of a scene that we're writing music for, and we want to be able to reference something based on feeling or emotion. So I've given these progressions we'll be looking at today new names, and we're going to start with the one that Richard Cohen named Taraskin, but I'm naming it the Magical Motion. Now, the first of these chromatic mediants I want to address is the one that I have named the Magic Motion. I've named that because that's the feeling it gives me, that sense of magic and wonder. I mean, you could think that it sounds ethereal or godly, and you could name it that, and that's what's important. We name it something that we can reference to a feeling or emotion or a character that we are scoring for. Now, the way this motion works is it's two major chords that are a major third apart. So, for example, if we start in C, the C major chord, and we want to play a chord that's a major third above that, to find a major third, we just go up 4 semitones from our root, which here is C. 1, 2, 3, 4. That lands us on E, so we know our next chord will be E major. So, if we put those two chords together, it sounds like this. That sort of magical, sort of ethereal sort of sound, that sort of godly sound. Now, this is really well illustrated within the score for Fellowship of the Rings by Howard Shore in the track Aniron, which you may know better as the Aragorn Arwen love theme, where in that we see that he moves the chord between an A flat major and an F flat major. So let's have a listen to that, and I'll put the score on screen so you can see what's happening. Again, you see it's between that A flat major and an F flat major. And the way it works is the A flat major, if we go down a major third, in this case going down 1, 2, 3, 4, we land on our F flat. You may say, well, that's E. Well, E and F flat are on harmonically the same note, but because we're in A flat, we're going to call it F flat. Another place that this is used really well is in Basil Poledouris's score for The Hunt for Red October, particularly the track 250, which is the scene where the Red October is being tracked on radar and it suddenly magically vanishes off the radar. I'm going to play that clip and put that score up for you so you can see what's going on. So have a listen, look at the score, and you see the relationship between the two major chords that are a major third apart. So the next chromatic mediant motion we'll be looking at is one that I've named the heroic motion. I've named that because this motion sort of evokes a feeling of heroes going off on an adventure to me. Now you may feel that it gives you a feeling of regal royalty, and you can name it that. The important thing is to name these progressions as something that what feeling or emotion or character type that you were scoring for. And that's what's important to us as film composers, the emotion, feeling, or the character we're scoring over. Now, the way this motion works is it's two major chords, a minor third apart. So, if we take our C major chord, and we want to find a minor third either above or below, in this case we go above, we move by 3 semitones. So here's our tonic of C. So we go 1, 2, 3, and we end up on the E flat. So our next chord will be an E flat major chord. So we end up with this movement. And now this is brilliantly illustrated again in Howard Shore's score for Fellowship of the Rings, in the track Fellowship of the Rings, where the relationship, he starts off with the D major to an F major and back to a D major. And he then throws in our magic progression, showing you can mix these different chromatic mediant motions together to evoke feelings. So you then go from that D major to our B flat major before he goes back to the F major, then goes to a back to D, back to F, and then obviously C, D. Now you see how the important movement here is that notes between D and F. So 1, 2, 3. F is a minor third above the tonic of D. So now let me play that for you with the score on screen so you can see what's going on within that scene. Another good use of this motion is Elmer Bernstein's score for the film Three Amigos, particularly in a track called Suits, which is the scene where they've got their costumes back and they're all dressed up, ready to head off to Mexico to be the heroes in what they believe is their next big film. And you can hear this build up with this little motif, and it lands on different chords. It starts off, it hits that A flat major chord, and then from there it goes to a B major chord, and then it will land on a D major chord. But it's using mainly first position triads. So let's do it with first position triads and you'll hear it a lot better. So we hear and the relationship here is that minor third. We have A flat, we go up 3 semitones. That's where we land on a B, so our B major chord. Then they take it up another chord by going up a minor third, so from B, and land on the D, which is a minor third above the B, and play a major chord. So that motion is a continuing chromatic mediant motion. So let me play that for you and put it up on screen. So now we move on to our minor chromatic mediant motions. And the first one we're going to look at is the one that musicologist Richard Cohen named the Tarnhelm. And he named it the Tarnhelm because he named it after the Tarnhelm motif from Wagner's The Ring Cycle. Now it works by moving 2 minor chords a major third apart. On Wagner, he used a G sharp minor, moved to an E minor and back. And the relationship is between this G sharp and we go down a major third, or we could go up a major third, which is 4 semitones. So let's go down 4 semitones from our G sharp, 1, and it lands there on our E. Now let's listen to it in Wagner's Tarnhelm. I shall put it up on screen, and where you'll see as this guy puts on this magic helmet, the Tarnhelm, you'll hear that sudden progression happening. So have a listen. So, but the name Tarnhelm may not be useful to all of us as film scorers because not everybody's versed in the work of Richard Wagner. So I've chosen to rename this after its most famous use in film scoring, and that is Vader, as in the character Darth Vader from Star Wars, as it's famously used in the Imperial March, which is really the motif for Darth Vader. So as you could hear and see there on the score, this particular one, the Vader theme or the Imperial March, moves between a G minor chord and an E flat minor chord. So when it's played within the track, so it creates that very sort of sinister sound, like evil regime, an evil sorcerer, and it's been used in many places apart from just Darth Vader. I mean, I'm going to just play scenes. I'm not going to put the score up. I just want you to hear that relationship between these two minor chords moving a major third apart. So the first clip will be from 1989's Batman, the theme by Danny Elfman, and the second clip will be from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which was scored by John Williams. I want you to just listen out for where those happen, and so you go using your ears. So the final chromatic mediant motion we're going to be looking at, I've named, again after Star Wars, one of its most famous uses, and I've named it the Palpatine, because this one to me, it creates something very sinister, but unlike the previous Tarnhelm or Vader motion, it's a lot less stable. And this one works by taking two minor chords that are a minor third apart. So, for example, if we take a C minor, and we want to go find our minor third away from that, we either go up or down 3 semitones. We'll go up here, so here's our tonic of C, we land on an E flat, so our next chord will be E flat minor. So we end up with this. So yeah, it's very sinister and it's kind of unstable, something like only a dark sorcerer would be able to hold together. It's quite wicked, evil sounding, so it's very good for evil characters, evil scenes, something where you want to create suspense. And so here it is. I'm going to play the Palpatine motif by John Williams. I'll put the score up on screen for you to take a look at, and I want you to see the relationship in this one between the chords. So as you see there, the relationship there is that change between, in the case of the Palpatine by John Williams, the G minor and a B flat minor. Again, we see there between the G, tonic of our G minor chord, we go up 3 semitones, 1, 2, we land on that B flat, which would then give us our B flat minor chord, creating that very sinister, very sort of suspenseful, evil sound. Another great use of this is in the main title theme for the movie Basic Instinct, which I'll play now with the score on screen. Well, I want you to note here again, it's another case of where we mix up the chromatic medium progressions, because they absolutely start with what we've called the Vader or the Tarnhelm motion for the first 6 bars, and in the 6th bar where they're on an F sharp minor chord, so and all of a sudden it will go, and then it travels to A minor chord, creating that Palpatine chromatic mediant motion. So here we go, have a listen, look at the score and check it out. So you're saying, now what about that third rule that you mentioned? Well, the rule that is really a useful guideline, that the chords must be of the same type, i.e. major to major or minor to minor. And the reason this is a useful guideline, it's not an absolute rule, let's say that, it's a useful guideline because it maintains the stability within our motions. For example, if we were to take our first sort of magical motion, which was let's do it in C, so we'll go C to E major. What happens there is, if you notice, we have a note in both chords that's the same, and this is important, that holds it together, why we can play these 2 chromatic chords but they sound like they work together. Similarly, if I was to take our heroic progression, which will be C to A flat, we'll see what we have a note that is shared. So we have C, and as we change to A flat, that C note is a common note between both of those chords, holding them together, making it sound stable, stopping it falling apart. Similarly with our minor ones, if we take our Tarnhelm slash Vader progression, we're doing C minor to E minor. There we have that note is holding it together, as in both chords, common tone between both chords holding it together. Similarly, if we take our Palpatine, which will be, in this case we'll use C major, notice that note is in both chords holding it together, and it keeps it stable sound, it stops everything falling apart. But like I said, that's not a hard and fast rule, you can go against that. In fact, one of the most famous chord progressions in history, one of the most written about chord progressions by music theorists and musicologists, is the Tristan progression from Wagner's Tristan and Isolde, where he starts off on an A minor chord, then he switches to this F chord that people still haven't decided exactly what it is yet, after over a century of arguing about it, before resolving it to a E dominant. So we have a chromatic mediant relationship because we have the A minor, then we have this F something, but it shares none of the notes of the previous A minor. So it's chromatic mediant, not sharing any notes, and Wagner did that to create tension, and he holds it together by then resolving it to the E dominant chord, which is the 5 of the A minor. So he's resolved back to the key of A minor with that chord. Now we want that resolved back to A minor after the 5 chord, but Wagner doesn't do that, not until right at the end of the opera. So from the beginning of the opera to the end of the opera, he holds this tension using a chromatic mediant relationship. Now I hope this has been useful to you, and you'll be able to use this in your film scoring or your compositions in general. Thank you very much, and take care.